Question number 1. In this question we have a hemisphere. On that hemisphere we have an object kept. The radius of hemisphere is given r. Question is, what minimum horizontal velocity has to be imparted to the object so that it will not slide on the sphere but it will directly jump from the sphere. So we have to find the minimum velocity for that. So for this, what we will write? We will write all the forces acting on the object first. So first is mg downward, normal upward. Now combination of these two forces. If the object slides, then this combination of these two forces will give the centripetal force, that is mv square by r. If object slides on it. Now if this object will jump from here, it will not slide. It means normal force becomes 0, and in that case mg will be equal to mv square by r, and we can write v equal to under root gr, which is option A. Okay, come to the second question. In this question we have a rod fixed between two rigid walls. Now it is heated with a temperature difference of theta, and its Young's modulus is given y, and alpha is the coefficient of linear expansion. So what we have to find? The stress developed in the rod. So for this, what will happen? First we will try to understand, if we heat the rod, its length will increase due to linear expansion, and there are two walls on two sides. These walls will compress the rod from both sides. So because of that compression, the length will decrease. So the increase in length due to linear expansion, due to heating, will be compensated by decrease in length due to compression from both sides. And this 2L, the increase in length, should be equal to decrease in length. So that we can write, for heating, we can write delta L equal to L alpha into theta. The change in length will be L times alpha, linear coefficient of linear expansion, into change in temperature. Similarly, we can write for compression from walls, y equal to stress by strain, or we can write strain equal to, we can directly write here stress by strain equal to delta L by L. Now we will try to compare these two equations. Here we will get delta L equal to stress into L by y. Now delta L from this equation and delta L from first equation, delta L from second equation and delta L from first equation, these two we will equate. So we are going to get L alpha theta equal to stress into L by y. After solving it, we will get stress equal to y alpha theta. So our answer will be y alpha theta, and that is option A. Come to question number 3. We have a sphere of radius capital R. Inside that sphere we have a spherical cavity of radius small r. Now this sphere is floating in water, almost completely submerged. Relative density of solid material is given, that is sigma, and we have to find the ratio of these two radii, small r and capital R. So for this we will use the Archimedes principle. So first we will write the weight of the sphere. So weight of a sphere will be mass into g. Mass will be the volume. Volume is 4 pi by 3 capital R cube. That is for whole sphere minus the volume of cavity. So 4 pi by 3 small r cube, this is volume, into density. So density, what we will write? We have relative density. If relative density is multiplied with density of water, we will get the density of solid. So relative density into density of water will give the relative the density of solid into G. Now this is weight of sphere. Since sphere is completely submerged, the amount of water replaced will have same weight. So weight of replaced water will be 4 pi by 3 r cube. Since it will replace the water equal to whole volume of sphere, 4 pi by 3 r cube into density of water into G. Now these two quantities will be equal. So if we solve this, we are going to get 4 pi by 3 r cube sigma rho wg. So if we solve it, we will get small r by capital R sigma minus 1 divided by sigma to the power 1/3. That is option B. We have two objects which are moving. Initially they are at rest and they are moving due to the mutual attraction. Only due to mutual attraction, there is no external force, and initially they were at rest. Now after some time they are having velocity v and 2v. So what we have to find? The velocity of center of mass at that instant. Since these two objects were initially at rest and there is no external force, the force is only mutual attraction. Since there is no external force, we can write F external equal to 0, and hence we can write acceleration of center of mass will be 0, and so answer will be option D. Come to question number 5. In this question we have a solid cylinder of radius r which is on the incline at rest. Now it will roll down, and when it descends by height h, we have to find the linear speed of the center of mass of solid cylinder. So for this we will use the conservation of energy. Why we will use conservation of energy? Because we have no loss of energy during the whole process. Since it is undergoing pure rolling, there is no loss of energy. So we will use delta U, the change in potential energy, equal to minus of change in kinetic energy. So change in potential energy will be minus mgh, since it is decreasing, and that will be equal to minus of change in kinetic energy. Kinetic energy we can write like this: final and initial. Since initially it was at rest, we will get only K final. So mgh equal to final kinetic energy of the solid cylinder. The kinetic energy of solid cylinder will have two parts. One will be translational, that is half mv square, and second will be rotational, that is half I cm omega square, where I cm is moment of inertia of solid cylinder about its center of mass. Now if we solve it, we are going to get mgh equal to half mv square, and ICM for solid cylinder is m r square by 2, and omega for pure rolling we can write V square by R square. So if we solve it, we will get mgh equal to m V square, and here we will get 3 by 4. So V will be equal to 4 GH by 3 under root, and that is option B. Okay, question number 6. We have an SHM whose time period is given T and amplitude is A, and the question is asked, find the minimum time to cover a distance A in this whole SHM. So for this, what we are going to use, suppose we start from this point. So A distance it will cover up to the extreme point. Now A by 2 distance is covered in T by 12 time, and after this point its velocity decreases. So if we consider the motion of SHM near the mean positions, we will get more velocity and less time to cover the same distance. So what we can do, suppose we start from here and go up to here, means what we are doing, we are considering the SHM, the simple harmonic motion, near the mean points. Near the mean position the velocity is more. So in this case, if we consider from plus A by 2 to minus A by 2, so total distance covered will be A by 2 and A by 2, A distance total will be covered, and the time taken will be from half to here, time taken is T by 12, and from here mean position to minus A by 2, again time taken is T by 12. So total time will be T by 12 plus T by 12 and hence T by 6, which is the option A. Okay, question number 7. We have been given the speed of sound in a medium is V and the RMS velocity of molecules of the medium is Vrms, and we have to find the ratio of velocity of sound to the Vrms, the speed of molecules RMS. So for that we will write the formula. For speed of sound we have gamma p by rho, and for Vrms we have 3p by rho. So if we take ratio of these two, we are going to get gamma by 3 under root, and that is option C. Okay, question number 8. In this question we have been given that a light is falling from one medium to second medium and it is getting reflected as well as refracted. So angle of incidence is given 60. Since angle of incidence and angle of reflection will be same, so here it is also again 60, and it is given that refracted ray and reflected ray are making 90 degree, and we have to find the refractive index of material. So for this what we are going to do, the angle of refraction and angle of reflection, that will be 60 degree. This two, sum of these two plus 90 will give total 180. So R dash plus I plus 90, R dash plus I plus 90 will give 180 degree. Now R dash is 180 minus 90 minus I, which will be 30 degree. Now R dash we have 30 degree and angle of incidence is 60. So we can write using Snell's law, refractive index of second material will be sin I by sin R dash, and that will be sin 60 degree divided by sin 30 degree, so root 3 by 2, and half. So our answer will be root 3, that is option D. Okay, come to question number 9. In question number 9 we have two rods joined to each other as given in diagram and fixed between two rigid supports, and it is given if temperature is increased then the junction point does not move, and we have to find the relation between alpha 1 alpha 2 y1 y2. So for this what we are going to do, first we will find the thermal stress developed in the rod. So for thermal stress, what do we write? We write the delta L, change in length by increase of temperature, that is L alpha theta. If theta is the increased temperature and alpha is the coefficient of linear expansion, L is length of rod. So we write delta equal to this much, and Young's modulus is stress by strain. So we can write Y equal to stress by delta L by L. So stress equal to Y into delta L by capital L. So stress, thermal stress developed is Y delta L by capital L. From here, if we put the value, if from here we put the value here, we can write Y, and delta L by L, we can write delta L by L, we can write as alpha theta. What we have done, from this equation we have taken delta L by L equal to alpha theta, and we have put here. So thermal stress in the rod will be Y alpha theta. Now these two rods are connected in series. Whatever thermal stress will develop in first rod, that will be same for second rod. Both rods will have same thermal stress. So for two rods we can write Y1 alpha 1 theta, Y2 alpha 2 theta, since the stress developed in both rods are same. And finally we can write Y1 by Y2 equal to alpha 2 by alpha 1, which is the second option, B. Okay, come to question number 10. In this question it is written we have an open pipe and we have a closed pipe whose lengths are given LO and LC, and it is given that fourth harmonic of open pipe is having same frequency as third overtone of closed pipe, and by using this we have to find the ratio of LO by LC. We have to find this. So for this we are going to write the expression for frequency. So frequency for fourth harmonic of open pipe will be 4V by 2LO, and for third overtone of closed pipe frequency will be 7V by 4LC. This we have written from, we can see from where we have got. Actually for different overtones, if you write V by 4LC, then 3V by 4LC, 5V by 4LC, 7V by 4LC. These are the different frequencies of overtone. This is for fundamental frequency of closed pipe, first overtone, second overtone and third overtone. So this we have used here. So third overtone frequency of closed pipe is 7V by 4LC, and for open pipe it is 4V by 2L0, that is fourth harmonic, 4 times of V by 2L0. Now these two are equal. So what we can do, 4V by 2L0 equal to 7V by 4LC, and we can find, after solving this, we will get L naught by LC equal to 8 by L naught. We will take L naught this side and we will get 8 by 7. After solving, we will get 4 this side and 2 this side and 7 here. So finally we will get L naught by LC equal to 8 by 7, and the option corresponding to that is D. Okay, come to question number 11. In this question it is written, there are two trains are moving opposite to each other with speed 108 km per hour. Both of them are having speed 108 km per hour, and one of them is whistling a sound and its frequency is given, the whistling frequency is given 500 Hz. What will be the apparent frequency heard by the second train or observer in the second train? So for that, what we are going to do, first we will write the speeds of train in SI unit. So it will be 108 into 10 by 36. So that we are going to get 30, and similarly here 30 meter per second, and similarly here we are going to get 30 meter per second. So both the trains will move with speed 30 meter per second, and now we have to find the apparent frequency heard by the second train. Suppose first train is whistling the sound, then apparent frequency heard by second. So for this we will use the Doppler effect concept, and the apparent frequency will be the original frequency into, since the observer is moving towards source, so we will write velocity of sound here and plus velocity of observer. We will write velocity of sound plus velocity of observer, because the observer is coming towards source, divided by velocity of sound minus velocity of the source. Source will come here, velocity of source. Since source is going towards observer, we will write velocity of source here. Now frequency emitted is 500 and here it is 330, the speed of sound it was given, and velocity of observer is 30, and finally we are going to get 600 Hz. This will be apparent frequency heard by the observer in the train B. So our answer will be option C. Okay, come to question number 12. In this question we have been given a coil with magnetic moment mu, and it is kept in the magnetic field in stable equilibrium. Stable equilibrium means the angle between magnetic moment and the magnetic field. The magnetic moment like this and magnetic field in same direction. The angle between magnetic field and magnetic moment will be theta equal to 0. Now we have to find the work done by field if the coil is rotated from this position by an angle theta. So work done is given by minus of change in potential energy. So that we can write minus of change in potential energy final minus potential energy initial, and it will be potential energy is minus mu b cos theta at an angle theta and mu b cos 0 initially, because initially angle was 0. So we can write minus mu b, we can take common, and here we can write minus cos theta 1 minus cos theta we can write, and finally we will get, here we will get a plus sign because of the minus already appears and this minus will be plus. Finally we are going to get this, and our answer will be option D. Come to question number 13. In this question we have been given a capacitor, and capacitor is initially charged, then it is disconnected from cell and isolated. Now a dielectric slab of dielectric constant K is inserted between the plates as shown in diagram. Now the field in the dielectric is given E1 and field in the air between the plates is given E2, and we have to find the relation between these two fields. So since these two plates will have same potential throughout, for first plate same potential will be here and here, and same potential here and here. So potential difference between the two plates will be constant. Potential difference between the two plates will be constant for dielectric region and for air region. So if potential difference is constant and distance is fixed, so electric field E1 will be potential difference V by the, suppose this distance is D, V by D, and E2 will also be V by D. And by comparing these two, we can say E1 equal to E2, and which is the option A. Come to question number 14. In question number 14 it is written that a ray is incident from glass to air. Ray is falling from on glass air interface from the glass side, and we have to find the maximum possible deviation, and refractive index of glass is given mu. Refractive index of glass is given mu, we have to find maximum possible deviation. So first we will see what are the different possibilities. Suppose this is normal. First possibility is ray is coming along the normal and it will enter the air directly without any deviation. That is a case for zero deviation. Now if we increase this angle, we will have an incident ray like this and refracted ray like this. So we will have a small angle of deviation. Now if we increase this angle further, we will get more increase in refracting angle, and hence we will also get the increasing angle of deviation. Now after some time, when the incident angle, the angle of incidence will become the critical angle, at that time the ray will come parallel to the interface. The time when incidence angle will be critical angle, at that time the refracted ray will go parallel to surface. And if we increase the angle further, we will have reflection. We will have total internal reflection. Now if we keep on increasing this, the reflected ray will start going in this direction. If we keep on increasing the angle, the reflected angle start going in this direction. So in that case the angle of deviation will decrease, and finally if ray is parallel to surface, the reflected ray will also be parallel to surface. So finally we can see the incident ray and reflected ray are parallel to surface, and they will have the angle of deviation 0. Initially also when it was falling perpendicular to surface, it was having angle of deviation 0, and the maximum deviation is in the case when we are having the angle of incidence equal to critical angle. In this case what will happen? The incident ray will have a reflected ray, and this will also have a angle of reflection equal to theta c, the critical angle. Angle of incidence and angle of refraction will be equal to theta c. And if you want to find the angle of deviation, to extend it further, and we are going to get the angle of deviation this much. and its value will be delta. The value delta will be total is pi for a straight line. If you consider here, if you erase all these other lines, we will get a line without deviation like this, and after getting reflected we will have angle of deviation delta, and we can write its value as pi minus theta c this side and theta c second one. So 2 theta c, pi minus 2 theta c, and the value of theta c is sine inverse 1 by mu. Hence our answer will be option D. Come to question number 15. In this question we have been given a circuit in which 1 microfarad, 3 microfarad, 6 microfarad capacitors are connected as shown in diagram, and a 50 volt cell is connected like this, and we have to find the charge on 6 microfarad capacitor in steady state. So for finding charge on 6 microfarad capacitor, first what we will do, we will find the equivalent capacitance of these two, the 3 and 6. The 3 and 6, since they are in series, the equivalent of 3 and 6 will be 3 into 6 divided by 3 plus 6. So 18 by 9, hence 2 microfarad. So the capacitance of 3 and 6 combined is 2 microfarad. Now this combined capacitor is connected with 50 volt. So charge accumulated on these two combined will be Q equal to CV, and C is 2 microfarad and V is 50 volt. So we are going to get 100 microcoulomb. 100 microcoulomb is charge on both. Since they are in series, the 100 microcoulomb will reside on individual charges as well. Both will have same charge, that will be 100 microcoulomb. So our answer will be 100 microcoulomb and the option will be B. Come to question number 16. In this question we have been given a circuit diagram, a combination of resistances is given, and we have to find the resistance between point A and B, and each resistance is having value R, and we have to find the resistance between point A and B. So first we will try to redraw this circuit. So for redrawing, what we will do, these two resistances R and R we will draw like this. And here point A. So the resistances which were drawn here, we can draw like this also. This is same circuit. Now we can see that between point A and B, this is forming a Wheatstone bridge, because this resistance is equal to this resistance, the resistance between AM is equal to resistance between AL, and hence we also have the resistance between LB is same as resistance between M and B. So it will form a Wheatstone bridge. These two resistances are in same ratio, so R equal to R. These two resistances are in same ratio with these two resistances. So we will have Wheatstone bridge. So we can remove the bridge resistance, and finally what we will get, these two resistances in series and these two resistances in series, and total this resistance and total this resistance in parallel. So finally we are going to get, here we will get the equivalent of these two, we will be having 2R because they are in series, and equivalent of these two will be having value 2R, and finally these two are in parallel. So final resistance will be 2R into 2R divided by 2R plus 2R. This 2R is parallel with this 2R. So finally we are going to get R, and our option will be A. Come to question number 17. In this question we have been given a proton and alpha particle in perpendicular magnetic field. They are moving and their radius are r and 2r. We have to find the ratio of their kinetic energy. So for that we will write the kinetic energy is half m v square, and we will write value of v in terms of radius. So r is mv by qb, hence we can write v equal to r cube b by m. Now if we put for kinetic energy, we will write half m r cube b by m square. So we are going to get k proportional to r square q square by m. Since magnetic field is same for both, we will not write here magnetic field. K is kinetic energy proportional to r square q square by m. Now for proton and alpha particle, if you write, we will write r for proton and r for alpha particle square, charge for proton and charge for alpha particle square, divided by mass of proton and mass of alpha particle. So radius for proton is r and for alpha particle is 2r. Charge for proton is and alpha particle ratio is 1 by 2 because alpha particle is having plus 2 charge, and for mass we can write 4 by 1 because alpha particle is 4 times heavier. Now if we solve it, we are going to get ratio, we are going to get ratio 1 is to, here it will be 1 by 4 and it is 4, so it will be 1 by 4 finally, and 1 by 4 is the option B. Come to question number 18. In this question it is given that L1 is angular momentum of hydrogen atom in ground state, angular momentum of electron in hydrogen atom in ground state, and L2 is angular momentum of electron for doubly ionized lithium in first excited state. So for this we have to find the relation between L1 and L2. So the angular momentum is nh by 2 pi, where n is the number of orbit. So for ground state n is 1, for first excited state it is 1. So it is independent of which molecule, which atom we are going to take, whether it is doubly ionized lithium or it is ground state hydrogen. It only depends upon the which orbit we are going to take. So for L1 it will be, n will be 1 because it is for ground state, h by 2 pi, and L2 is for doubly ionized lithium in first excited state. So for this L2 will be 2 into h by 2 pi. Now if we take ratio, L1 by L2 will be equal to 1 by 2, and our answer will be option A. Come to question number 19. In this question we have been given a magnetic field 1 millitesla, and now it has been asked that for what value of electric field we will get same energy density. So first we will write magnetic field energy density. Magnetic field energy density, its value is P square by 2 mu naught. Now we will write electric field energy density. Its value is half epsilon naught E square. Now according to question, these two should be same. So B square by 2 mu naught equal to half epsilon naught E square. So if we solve it, we will get E equal to B by under root mu naught epsilon naught. And the value of B, if we will put 1 millitesla, and putting these values, we are going to get 300 kilovolt per meter for the electric field. So option will be A. Come to question number 20. In this question, it is written that if the potential difference across Coolidge tube is increased, then what will happen? And 4 options are given, and we can see the options are regarding K alpha and K beta. K alpha and K beta lines of X-ray. These lines are independent of the voltage applied across Coolidge tube. These are property of the material of target. These are property of target material. So whatever potential we apply across Coolidge tube, that is not going to affect the K alpha and K beta lines. So our option will be none of the above. So option D. Come to question number 21. In this question we have been given 3 gates: OR gate, NAND gate and AND gate. And we have to finally tell what is this combination give. Means what will be one gate corresponding to these 3 combinations. So this we will solve using truth table. So inputs are P and Q. So if both inputs are 1, here in OR gate for X we will get, since X is the OR result of P and Q, we will get, for 1 we will get 1, 1 0, we will get 1, 0 1, we will get 1, and 0 0, we will get 0. Y is a result of NAND gate, and inputs are P and Q. So if both are 1, its AND will be 1 and NAND will be 0. If P is 1 and Q is 0, then its AND will be 0 and NAND will be 1. 0 1 input, so AND output will be 0 and NAND output will be 1. 0 0 input, so for NAND output will be 1. Now X, Y inputs are given to AND gate. So 1 and 0 input will give 0 output for AND gate. 1 and 1 input will give 1 output for this AND gate. 1 and 1 input will give 1 output. 0 and 1 input will give 0 output. So we can see that if both are 1, output is 0. If both are 0, output is 0. And if these two values are different, 1 and 0 or 0 and 1, we are getting 1. So this is example of XOR gate, which is called exclusive OR gate, and the option will be B. Come to question number 22. In this question, it is given that base current increases by 50 microampere, then collector current increases by 1 milliampere. Then we have to find the current gain factor. So current gain factor will be beta equal to the change in collector current divided by change in base current. So its value will be 1 milliampere divided by 50 microampere, and that is 20. So its option will be A. Come to question number 23. In this question we have been given two antennas on the earth surface. One is having height 45 meter, second one is having height 20 meter. Now for line of sight communication means there should be direct communication between them. For this, what should be the maximum distance between these points? Means what can be the maximum distance between these two antennas so that they will be able to satisfactorily communicate between them. So for this, formula is D is under root 2R H1, that is distance from here to here, and from here to here for second one it is 2R H2, where capital R is radius of earth and H1 and H2 are heights of the antenna. So after solving this we get 40 kilometer. So our option will be D. Come to question number 24. In this question it has been asked that what is the frequency range for the skywave communication, and the four options are given. So for skywave communication we have a wave emitted from the transmitter which is getting reflected by ionosphere and coming to the receiver. For this the frequency range varies from few megahertz to 30 megahertz. Generally it is 10 megahertz to 30 megahertz, and the option which belongs to this range is option B. Come to question number 25. In this question we have been given a bar magnet, and at end on position at a distance 10 centimeter magnetic field has been given, that is 4 into 10 to the power minus 4 Tesla. End on position means along the magnet. So this is end on position, and the value of magnetic field at end on position is given by this formula. What we have to find in this question is magnetization of the magnet. So magnetization is defined as magnetic moment of the magnet divided by the volume of the magnet. So that will be area into length. So magnetization is magnetic moment of the magnet divided by area, cross section area, into length. And magnetic moment M we can write from the values, because B we have and D we have. So we can write M equal to 2 pi dq B by mu naught. So this is value of magnetic moment. We will put here. Now all the quantities in this expression is given. D is 10 centimeter, B is given, mu naught, it is a universal constant, A is 1 centimeter square, and L is 1 centimeter. Now putting all the values, we get 2 into 10 to the power 6 ampere per meter, which is option A. Come to question number 26. In this question we have two statements. Statement 1 is, for a given strain, rubber is more elastic than steel. First of all, how to decide that an object is more elastic or less elastic is decided by Young's modulus. So Young's modulus for steel is more, for rubber it is less, because it is very difficult to stretch, and steel it requires a large amount of force and large amount of stress. So it's elastic, it's more elastic, steel is more elastic. Now come to second statement. Less stress is required for rubber than steel for same strain. So this statement is correct, because we can see that rubber can be stretched by applying very small amount of stress as compared to steel. So this statement is correct and this is wrong. So we will write option D. Come to question number 27. At absolute zero, internal energy of an ideal gas becomes zero. This is statement 1, and statement 2 is according to kinetic theory of gases, the motion of molecules ceases at absolute zero. So first statement is correct. At absolute zero, the internal energy of an ideal gas becomes zero. Although if it would have been real gas, the scenario will be different. And for ideal gas, at absolute zero, there is no motion for the particles or molecules. Vibrational, translational, rotational, all kind of kinetic energies ceases to exist at that point. So this is correct statement, and second statement is the correct explanation. So we will write option A. Come to the question number 28. In this question we have two statements. Focal length of biconvex lens is f in air. When it is placed in water, its focal length will be greater than f. And second is focal length of lens is independent of medium in which it is placed. So for that we will write first focal length. Focal length is written like mu minus 1 by r1 minus 1 by r2 from lens maker's formula. So this will give value of f. Now if this lens is put in water, the f dash is given by mu of water minus 1 by r1 minus 1 by r2. Now you can see if refractive index of water is 4 by 3. If you put value 4 by 3 here, the whole term will be less as compared to first term. Now if this is less, the f dash will be more. So f dash is more than f. Why it is more? Because in denominator we have a larger quantity here, and here in denominator we have 1. Nothing is there means 1. So in denominator we have a larger quantity. See, this whole term will be less as compared to the above one. Now f dash will be more here, and here focal length will be less. So we can say the first statement is correct and second statement is wrong because it is not independent. We can see that term for surrounding medium, that is water, is coming here. So it is not independent. So first option is correct and second one is wrong. So we will write option C. Come to the question number 29. In this question we have two statements. If pressure of an ideal gas is double, keeping temperature constant, the RMS speed of molecule will be doubled. So temperature is kept constant. If pressure is changed, RMS speed of molecule will be double. First statement. Second is the RMS speed of molecule of an ideal gas depend on temperature but independent of pressure and volume. So in this case what we can see that the RMS speed depends upon all three quantities, volume, pressure and temperature. But if temperature is kept constant, the RMS speed will not change. So first statement, temperature constant, so RMS speed will not change. So first statement is wrong. In second statement, it is written that RMS speed of molecule of an ideal gas depend on temperature and independent of pressure and volume. So pressure and volume, they independent. It will be independent of pressure and volume as long as temperature is kept constant. So this statement is right. So we will write option D. Now come to question number 30. A skywave communication is used for very long distance. This is statement 1, that is correct. And for very long distance communication, it is achieved by ionospheric reflection. Means waves are emitted from the transmitter at Earth's surface and they are reflected from the ionosphere and coming back to the Earth's surface. So this is also correct, and this is correct explanation of first statement because this is the skywave, property of skywave. So our option will be answer A.